The new guys Dave Aranda loved in Baylor's latest scrimmage are going to be huge contributors week 1 against Auburn.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Monarch Money and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. It is a Wicker Wednesday here on the Locked On Podcast Network and truly all across the globe. And we have Sydney Wicker of KCEN Channel 6 joining us as she does every Wednesday to talk about who Dave Aranda loved in this scrimmage over the weekend, the big scrimmage before week 1 against Auburn. We will also talk about what this new look running back room is going to look like and who's going to step up and why. And there's a little bit of John Mateer in all of us who have friends anyway. We'll explain that whole fiasco, what that means for college football, not just Oklahoma, not just the Baylor Bears, all that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. But we start where we start, and that is the scrimmage on Saturday. Big news. I know Sydney had plans. She shut them down. She was like, I gotta see what's going on in this scrimmage on a Saturday night.
Obviously.
It was biggest thing happening in Waco, I'm sure, on a Saturday night in August. And it's really just an opportunity for us to hear like who did well in a game situation, right? It's a chance for them to not go up against another team, but have some refs out there, make some calls, make some plays. Sydney, I know you're a sucker for a good scrimmage, just like how you love spring football, right?
Of course, it's just the best. Like, we count down the days for our first scrimmage. It's circled on my calendar. Like, Can't wait.
It's one of those things, much like spring football, for most months of the year we think is really stupid. And then when you're parched and you're thirsty for football, you're like, bring me spring ball. Bring me the scrimmage. Bring me the 10-play drives. I need it. I know what's going on in high school right now, too. We love a good scrimmage in August. And so does Dave Aranda. So who stood out for this Baylor Bears team? Some new names, some ones that might surprise you, and ones that might have a huge part to play in that massive week 1 matchup.
I thought that offensive line did a nice job of working their combos and working up in the tight zone game. I thought Caden played well. I thought there's a couple cuts he made. There's one where I think the ref said that we got him. I don't know if we got him, though, And so he had a really good run. I think his pass protection is improving. And then I think defensively, some of the young linebackers I thought played well. Caleb Burns played well. And Matthew Fobbs White played well.
Both Auburn and Baylor both reporting that the defense did better than the offense, in so many words, in their scrimmages. Sydney, from hearing from Dave Aranda right there, what are the names that kind of jump off the page as he talks about the guys that he saw that jumped off the page? Some new blood, some new names in there, which I
think that's like why it was surprising, and maybe that's why Coach Aranda said those guys, because he was shocked too. So that means good things, right? I think mentioning Caden is huge, especially now. You kind of have to point that out. Yeah. But just overall, when he was listing off those guys, I was kind of like, okay, because you just get so used to hearing the leaders, but to hear the versatility in that, I kind of think that speaks volumes. Because for Coach Aranda to notice and for that to catch his eye, that says something.
And to clarify, too, this is not the first preseason NFL game for a lot of teams. This is guys who are going to play are playing. You're rotating a lot of guys in, but it's not like, you're throwing a JV squad out there just to get some reps, or a scout team to get some reps. That's not the case. And I mean, the two that really hit me somewhere nice was Caleb Burns and Matthew Fobbs White. Those are both guys. Caleb Burns, obviously a true freshman who flipped from Tech to Baylor last year during the season, actually, and had turned down some big-time programs, too. It turned down Oregon in order to flip to Baylor. True freshman. Matthew Fobbs White comes in as a transfer from Tulane. One at linebacker, one more hybrid on the defensive end there. But both of them are pass rushers, Sydney. We've talked so much about defense in this year. Yeah. Mainly the defensive backs room, but Baylor did not pressure the quarterback last year. They did not pressure the quarterback the year before. This is huge.
So huge. I think as a Big Ten fan too, like, God, it hurts me not seeing any pressure like that on a quarterback because I'm like, sack him. And like, as a sports
Sydney's
reporter,
like, I don't like the forward pass.
on the
All right.
sidelines, I'm like, God, don't say anything. Like, you're doing your job. You're not watching for fun. Like, this is for real. So it's hard. But no, that's huge. I think especially when you think about what Auburn typically produces, like, they always have strong running backs. I remember with Jarquez Hunter when he was there last season for a couple years, like, that guy just finds ways to get up the gut. They always have strong wide receivers. Like, Auburn always has pretty big weapons. So even if they have new guys in those roles, you know they're pretty much going to come back loaded. So being able to have that pass rush and have guys step up like that in a scrimmage, that's only going to make it better when you think about that Auburn game in week 1.
Yeah, and specifically off of that, to look at Jackson Arnold for
Yeah.
Auburn, someone who I've talked about quite a bit over the last week or two that's gotten clipped a few times. I actually don't think Jackson Arnold's that bad. I really don't, and I've said it on the crossovers with Auburn a few times. But where he really struggled the most last year at Oklahoma was the fact that they didn't have much of a run game and they didn't have an offensive line. And so he was running for his life the whole season. Auburn, probably a better offensive line than Oklahoma had last year. But if Baylor can finally get to the quarterback, disrupt the quarterback, get some, you don't get the jersey dirty anymore. You get some pellets under the pads of the quarterback, then maybe this defense can, take some pressure off the defensive backs. I think that's a really interesting one to look at week 1 specifically. I know we've been on the show, we've been so locked in on week 1, locked on to week 1. But I think that becomes hugely important when Dave Aranda by name is mentioning 2 pass rushing linebackers / ends and also mentions the offensive line is doing well. That's where I think Baylor can have some problems in this Auburn game, is in the trenches. But I mean, we've talked about it, Sydney. This offensive line, when things turned around last year, obviously running back, quarterback, wide receiver turned around, but the offensive line turned around. Mason Miller in week 1, you bring a lot of those guys back. To hear that is doing better, it's got to be music to our ears, right?
Yeah, and it's not just Coach Aranda who's noticed that either. I feel like that's something we've heard from a lot of the other guys in fall camp too, is they're like, yeah, the O-line looks good. And, to hear that constantly, I think it speaks volumes to hear it from the players and the guys who see it too, because they're the ones in it. Like, we know Coach Aranda can see it, but when there's something about being in it and looking through it that just makes such a difference. So yeah, the offensive line just seems to continue to keep growing and making big jumps and leaps, and again, to step up in a scrimmage and have a good performance then too. We know what this offense is capable of, but gosh, let them unleash with all the protection right there.
Yeah.
So much more to come.
Yeah, barring injury, like the worst thing that could happen for this offense is if the offensive line doesn't perform well, because you have so much skill around them. They just need the time to make it happen. But speaking of injury, there is a big one that happened, and we need to get Sydney's take on it, and we need to hear from Dave Aranda on who he believes is going to step up in this somewhat new look running back room. That name and that explanation is coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, how about a word from our friends over at Monarch Money? Most of us can't even find our account, let alone tell you what's in it. Yeah, that's probably me too. 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Probably where you're watching or listening to this podcast right now. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your own money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Praise the Lord when it comes to not having to touch a spreadsheet, okay? I now share some accounts with my partner. She's going to be a doctor this weekend. That's huge for me, but even more huge is that we could do it on Monarch Money. You can find all your shared personal accounts all in one place. You don't have to get a bunch of different apps to do it. That's why I love Monarch Money. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. That's my least favorite opportunity to slip through the cracks is the financial one. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code Locked On College. Back here on Locked On Baylor on a Wicker Wednesday, Sydney Wicker of KCEN Channel 6 joining as she does every week. So as a reminder, get involved in that comment section below. Let me know what you think about this Baylor team's outlook after the Dawson Pendergrass injury, after the scrimmage, but before Auburn week 1. Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe. Helps me keep my job, helps us on the path towards 4,000 subscribers, which we're trying to get to ambitiously before the season kicks off. It's worth a shot, Sydney. That's all I'm going to say.
It's always worth a shot.
We're about 120 away. All right. So it's not crazy, but like now we need people. Tell your friends. Okay. We need people on board. We're going to get there. In fact, my boss, who does do a show that some of you have probably watched recently, thinks I can get to 5,000 before the end of the season. So wow, we're getting ambitious at Locked On Baylor, aren't we? But let's talk about where ambition might have dried up a little bit for some Baylor fans. And that is this Dawson Pendergrass injury. Weekend, Saturday night, there were some rumblings around. I know it was going through the 365 chat rooms of a key player going down. And we didn't know who it was until Saturday night when it was confirmed. Dawson Pendergrass, foot injury, out for the season. Sydney, this is a guy we've talked about a lot on our shows on these Wednesdays. What was your reaction to that, hearing that news?
Truthfully, just heartbroken for him. Like, I know how badly he wants to be out there. He's a class act, truly like a Baylor guy to a T. Yeah. And just the dynamic duo of him and Bryson, like, it's contagious watching the two of them hype each other up in the way that they play. So I just was sad for him, honestly, and sad for a lot of Baylor fans because I know how excited they were to see Dawson. I think this was going to be another year of growth. We saw it in spurts, but I thought we were going to see more consistency out of him and the rotation between him and Bryson. So it just kind of stinks overall to lose him, especially this early in fall camp.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We're still, 2.5 weeks away from game one. It's not like it was happening in the middle of the season. We didn't even get a game of Dawson Pendergrass this year, which really stinks. And I've mentioned it before, not like we're different from a lot of other college football fan bases, but that has seemed to happen to Baylor in the last 10 years. Things go well and a big injury comes up. I think the notable exception, would have been overcoming it in 2021, overcoming an injury from your quarterback and moving forward and still winning the Big 12 and then winning the Sugar Bowl. But other than that, it's happened a couple of times. And you say Baylor to a T, which is a great point here. Not that any of these guys are less Baylor than anybody else, but Dawson Pendergrass had a great quote before last season. Where he had kind of a nice year coming off of 2023 where they were 3-9. He was a true freshman, but he looked pretty good. Scored a couple touchdowns, had a couple of big games. And he said before the season, he was very open and honest with the media. He was like, that sucked last year, going 3-9 and walking around campus with your Baylor football shirt on. It's embarrassing. Like, everybody in your classes knows what the record is. They know that the team's not very good. They know that you're probably going to lose this weekend, right? It's not fun. And he said, he'd been asked if he was going to transfer at all. And he said, you know what? It didn't even really cross my mind. I mean, we're talking about a freshman who put 5 or 6 touchdowns on tape for a 3-9 team in the Big 12. Like, he could have gone somewhere else. And he was like, no, he wanted to get rid of that feeling. And he was a big reason why they got rid of that feeling in 2024 and obviously had the hot streak to end the regular season. Dave Aranda was asked about this, of course, on Saturday after revealing the Dawson Pendergrass injury. Here's what he had to say about this running back room and who's going to step up.
I thought that I feel good about our depth behind them. We've got some young players that are now going to be pressed into playing a little bit earlier than maybe they were thinking.
talking about that depth, like, you know, how much more pressure that we got. Caden Knighten got us drawn a lot of buzz. Obviously, Bryson, just how much more responsibility is to put on the rest of your running back room with that injury?
Yeah, I think that's true all the way. That's true in any position room with football, and that's what's great about our game is that there's the ability to do that. And you know, I think sometimes as coaches you can put people into a box. I don't think you intentionally ever want to do that, but you can go, hey, he's young, let him learn. But when you really press somebody into service and you really press them to work, and you challenge them, and you give them adversity and you push them through it, a lot of times they surprise you with what they can come up with. But we've got a good room, talented players, and so I expect for them to step up.
What does this do for you, Sydney, thinking back to last year and the core of this team that comes back? They faced some adversity last year. Like, they didn't know, I'm sure they didn't know getting on that plane going from Ames back to Waco whether their coach would be the coach the next day at 2-4. You know, like that's real kind of adversity. And they bounced back so well from that. And this is adversity right here. Like, here you go. Before you even kick off week one, here's some more adversity.
I think what we've learned so much about these guys is that they have such a chip to respond. Like, everybody's waiting for the next one to step up when things happen. It's almost like they expect it. Like, not that they're waiting for bad things to happen, but they're ready. And they have this mentality of that next man up, like, let's go. Like, they're sad about it. Yes, of course, this was a teammate, not something you want to happen, but they're prepared. And I think that's what makes the biggest difference here. And hearing Coach talk about it, he was like, the depth in that room is huge. And it's there. So it's okay. Like, it sucks and not what we want, but at least we know we have the talent in our room.
Yeah. And one of the guys he mentioned in our first segment, talk about the scrimmage, the guys that stood out, was Caden Knighten. And that's a name we've heard a lot. In fact, when he was saying it, he just said Caden. And I was like, Caden Jenkins, great. Love to hear that. And then he starts talking about pass protection and everything. And I'm like, I hope Caden Jenkins is not protecting the passer. That must be Caden Knighten. So I'm like, maybe even better, because we know Caden Jenkins could be a good player at this level. We don't know about Caden Knighten yet. But that's a guy that his teammates have been talking about. Devin Bobby called him the mini Scattaboo. I'm in. I'm all in for that. He's going to have to step up. He's going to take some big snaps. And let's put our real football guy / gal helmet on here, Sydney. I was titillated when Dave talked about Caden Knighten's pass protection, because that's blocking is not something high school running backs just pick up at the Power 4 level D1 year one. Caden Knighten apparently has overcome a huge hurdle to where the head coach is saying he's doing really well in pass protection. How much do you think that helps him solidify the job as being the number 2 back behind Bryson Washington?
Oh my gosh, so much. Like, Bryson,
that's something Dawson Pendergrass is really good at too, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you look at Dawson and Bryson, you always have that 1-2 punch between the both of them. Like, somebody's going to punch it through. Like, they're going to get there. They're not necessarily like, they're pretty big guys. I mean, standing next to me, I'm like, they can power through. They knock me on my butt in a second. And I know that, and I can accept it. But
head on a swivel, Sydney. Head on a swivel.
Head on a swivel at all times. Be prepared. If it's not the player, it's probably the ref.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it speaks a lot. And I just was talking about that chip, the expectation of always being ready to step up. It seems like Caden's a guy who's carried a chip. I mean, he only played at 2A school. He also was a state champion track runner while he was there. So we know he's got the speed to do it too. But being at a smaller school, only being a 3-star coming out of high school, like, he's a guy who was probably doubted a little bit. So you
sounds
want
like Bryson
that.
Washington a little bit.
It sounds just like Bryson. And so you have a guy like Bryson you can look up to.
Yeah.
And then you've got
to too, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Small school guy. Yep.
That's something, and I feel like that's a theme in this room, but I kind of love it. You kind of need it.
Yeah, and not for nothing, their position coach is one of the great motivators in the locker room, the great recruiter, the guy that recruited Caden Knighten, who is Keenan Hall. So they love the depth in that room, and I think that's something that really stood out after the Pendergrass injury. I talked about this on the show yesterday, but it's worth noting again. because I saw some comments under videos, my videos, other reports of the Dawson Pendergrass news of people saying like, this is why it's so key to have depth. Like, it sucks that Baylor doesn't have depth. And I'm like, this is the depth. Like, first off, Dawson Pendergrass is the depth. Like, he was the number 2 guy. Very good. Probably the best number 2 guy in the conference, but that's depth. And I think Baylor fans are going to see pretty quickly that this is not blowing smoke. Like, they've got guys who are ready in the wings, probably weren't going to be big contributors this year, not necessarily. But I said on a show like a month ago, like, don't be surprised if these freshmen get some sprinkled in some carries here. Dave likes doing that. He doesn't like having less than like 3 guys who he can hand the ball off to. Some schools don't do that. But Caden Knighten, Joseph Dodds, and Michael Turner, like, they're all going to get a touch here and there. And one of them is going to emerge as the number 2 guy. But I just don't think this is fake. I don't think this is lip service. This feels like real depth. And before I go any further, you talked about it earlier. It's one thing to hear from the coach. How about hearing from the players? Bryson Washington, what do you think about the depth in this room?
Man, all those guys, they're young, but they learning fast. I say they all got some quickness to them. Dodds a little bit bigger, and I feel like he has the exposure, and him and Caden Knighten as well.
If Bryson's not worried, I feel like we shouldn't be worried, right?
No,
Take it for what it's worth.
He honestly, not that he was like so oddly calm, but he was very calm in that. I wasn't there for that. My coworker Madison was out at that practice that day, but when I was watching the interview, I was like, gosh, he's not stressed at all. He really said, he was like, we got this. Like, we hate that we don't have Dawson, but we got this. And having that confidence and just knowing, especially when you know the guy who's coming in for you when you're subbing out, like that speaks volumes of this room and just how deep they really are.
And for Baylor fans still concerned, you still got a top 10 offensive coordinator in America. Jake Spavital makes some pretty good money dealing with things like this and making it work. So let me know what you think, again, about this running back room depth. There we go. Let me know in the comments below. Who do you think is going to take that mantle? Caden Knighten, Joseph Dodds, Michael Turner? Let me know in the comments, and then like and subscribe because that really helps out the channel. Coming up, a guy that I'm sure Jake Spavital would have liked to have worked with if he didn't have Sawyer Robertson is John Mateer, one of the great transfer portal guys of this year. He's in a bit of hot water. Are we making too much of the Venmo thing? Let's talk about it next, real quick, on Locked On Baylor. All right, Sydney, the story of the week in college football is not, the Farmageddon week 0 ranked matchup. It's not Baylor Auburn. It is John Mateer, the quarterback of the Oklahoma Sooners, who is one of the prized recruits of the transfer portal coming in from Washington State. Somebody found John Mateer's Venmo and presumably wants him banned from college football. Let's take a look, shall we? Oh, no. This isn't good. This isn't good, Sydney. In 2022, John Mateer paid one of his teammates, it looks like, Richard Roatan, I don't know, sports gambling on the subject line. This has got Mateer in hot water. He's had to come out and make an apology saying, well, we all kind of thought, inside joke amongst friends, although he does have UCLA versus USC on one of them. I don't know.
Pretty specific.
It was a Pac-12 matchup when he was playing for a Pac-12 school. But what's your take on this, on this just fiasco that's coming out?
It's kind of a reality check of like, oh my God, what do I have on Venmo from college? Because
that's a good point.
Venmo really peaked, I feel like, when I was in college. And I just remember at least they don't show how much money you were sending to each other. Because for people who don't know, Venmo used to be very public like that. So
super public,
it's just
man.
Kind of crazy.
If your ex blocked you on anything, you could still see their Venmo, though.
Oh, of course. And that was kind of
not that
so
either of us know. Yeah, no.
If you ever wanted to do some weird investigating, go on Venmo.
Venmo, because it's all there. Yeah.
To something. I actually I don't really use Venmo that much anymore, but I logged into it the other day and I was scrolling on there for at least 20 minutes, just looking at other people's Venmo interactions for no reason other than my own nosy good. And now clearly John can feel the pain that a lot of other people feel, mostly exes, when you find out what they're doing on Venmo. But this is just so crazy. A lot of people I know think it's a joke. He's trying to, of course, hope that it gets played off as a joke. Don't really know how that's going to go.
Yeah, but
But
look at it says sports
title's
gambling.
weird.
Like,
yeah.
why would he do that if he was actually gambling on sports? Like, first off, you're not just doing an emoji for a Venmo. Like, I always just do random emojis. Like, that way nobody knows. But he's literally putting the header as sports gambling.
I want to say whoever
and Richard
did the
does
digging,
ultra sports gambling FIFA World Cup.
FIFA World Cup.
Nuts. Okay.
Whoever did the digging on this, wow. Because to go all the way back to 2022, like, you're just never really safe out here. But yeah, I don't know. It's really stupid. Like, come on. If you were really this dumb to do this, then yeah. But really,
I don't know.
Venmo Gate is not like what was on my idea of what I would come into this week talking about in the sports world. But here we are.
And what's kind of funny about this too is I mentioned it on the top of the show is like, I'm sure there's somebody on Baylor's team that's got something like this, right? Some sort of, if it's just a weird joke, then it's just a weird joke. But I'm sure there's something like that. I'm sure there's one on TCU's team. I'm sure there's one on Kansas State's team. I don't think these guys are literally like gambling on the games they're playing in, which would be obviously the worst of the worst. But this is just like, it's so dumb to me. And I have kind of a different opinion than most people these days on sports gambling. I do it. I do. I'm still much more into like good, entertaining games and my team winning than gambling, which I think is different from a lot of people. But like, if the guy's actually gambling on the World Cup, which, you know, that's what his friend puts as the, the next one, and he paid John Mateer for it. Like, who cares? Who cares? Which I think is what the NCAA would come to anyway, if that's what it was, but we obviously don't know here. All this to say, Sydney, this feels uniquely college football.
Very college football. Very much in the world. Yeah, in the world of cancel culture, like, this just could not be more just
like, there's
out
nothing
there
with the finger on the pulse quite like college football.
Nothing.
Like imagine the first athlete to get suspended for getting canned for gambling through Venmo. that happens. That doesn't happen in the Premier League, baby. That doesn't happen in the WNBA. That happens in college football.
College football truly is the best reality TV show that you could tune into on a weekly basis.
American, baby. It's so American, man. Do you think anything will come of this? Just your opinion. Obviously, we don't know too many details, but
yeah, I don't know. Obviously, it's hard because, like, can you really, like, find out if he did this? Like,
it's tough to
I
prove.
don't know.
Yeah.
You know, maybe like a couple game suspension or something. I don't know. But I think that's probably like the worst of it, maybe. I don't know. But it's so like silly almost. Like, what are we doing? Why does this matter? Also, just a reminder, put your Venmo on private. It does not need to be out there for the world to see. I think that's the real learning lesson. So thank you, John, for reminding all of us to keep that on private.
That's very good. That is very good. Sydney, before we go, and of course, I want you to comment your thoughts on John Mateer. I want you to like and subscribe. But before we go, I do want to try something different that I did not warn you about, but I'm going to try it anyway. I'm going to do some trivia to end the show.
Oh my God.
Because I want people watching to the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little trivia question. You don't have to answer it, Sydney. In fact, I'm not going to have you answer it. But what I want people to do is answer it in the comments. The first one that comments it on YouTube or tweets at me, if you're listening wherever you get your podcast, got to tweet it at Locked On Baylor, or else I won't see it. That answers this question gets a shout out on the next episode. And the question is this, because I was supposed to do it for an Arizona State crossover that has gotten pushed back indefinitely. So it's a little bit Arizona State themed. Okay. They're playing Baylor in week 4. They've only played one time ever. And that was in Tempe in the year 1990. My question to you is, there are 2 claimed national champions in 1990. One of them is now a Big 12 school, and they won their only national championship in the year 1990. First one to tell me in the comments or tweets at Locked On Baylor gets a shout out on the next video. Sydney, thank you so much for joining along on another Wicker Wednesday.
Thank you for
Charm as
making
always.
me not answer the trivia question because, oh my God, I do not know the answer.
I think you might get it.
I gotta think about it.
But you don't count. If you comment it, you don't count. I got to shout out somebody else. I'm sorry.
I'll just come back for another Wicker Wednesday. How about that?
Yes. And you and we'll put one that's right up your alley next Wicker Wednesday. How about that?
Perfect.
But guys, get the answers in on the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Only place for getting exclusive Baylor sports content for free 5 days a week. That's not directly coming from Baylor University. The only one that's even close is KCEN Channel 6, because Sydney's putting a ton of Baylor stuff out there. So thank you once again for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you again tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.